How to choose a good brand name. This is probably the most important step of the entire start a brand process. Having a good brand name is the foundation of the foundation. Because if you don't have a good brand name, you can't make a logo, you can't make an Instagram page, you can't make an URL for a website. Brand name is the most important step of them all. But it's not easy. Finding a good name, it requires effort, requires skill, requires just your time to think about it, to just make sure you have a good one. Because if your brand name sucks, then probably your entire brand will suck with it. So let's get into it. I have 10 steps to define a good brand name. Alright, step number 1 is stand out. People see hundreds of brand names every day, so it's really important that your brand name truly stands out. That it doesn't really just blend in with everything else, that it's something different, something fresh, something new. For example, Apple. Apple is just an amazing brand name. It's just so different than all the rest, the Lenovo, IBM, Microsoft, all these technical sounding names. Then you have Apple. It sounds fresh, it sounds youthful, it sounds clean. It's just something else, something different. So it's really important, if you can, that your brand name is standing out. Look at Supreme, for example. The word in itself is already pretty unique, but combined with the logo, bam, it makes it truly amazing, truly stand out. If you see it in the street, the Supreme sticker or the Supreme sign in the store, it truly just stands out from all the rest. So guys, make sure your brand name stands out. Something else really important is that your brand name can be set in multiple languages. Of course, if you're gonna expand, if your brand is gonna grow, then you will be selling in more countries, and then of course the language is gonna be really important. For example, my brand, Buchan, is actually an English word. It's my last name, of course. It's actually an English word, Buchan. So we just translated it to Dutch, like Buchan, but it can also be said in English or in French, Buchan. So you can say it in multiple languages. It differs a little bit, but it doesn't really matter too much. Like for example, Nike, also Nike, it doesn't really matter too much. It can be said in multiple languages. Tesla, Supreme, Apple, all these brand names can be said in multiple languages. So these are really important steps to think about, that your brand is not like too local to your language. For example, if it's like a Dutch word like waterfles, then it's gonna be really difficult to expand in other countries. Of course, this can also be like a plus, like if your brand name is something cool in that country that other countries don't know about, then it can also be a good thing. But most of the time you have to be really careful about thinking to expand in other countries and other languages. Step 3 is think about longevity. Will your brand name still sound cool in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years? That's something you really have to think about. Don't build a brand around a trend or something. Don't build a brand around like a year or like a COVID situation or something. Build a brand that can last. That can stand the test of time. Don't put year numbers in your brand name like Buchan 2024 because they can age really quickly. Also, don't build a brand around a trend, which I already said, because also they can age really quickly. And when a trend has passed, your brand name will sound kind of cringe or weird, or it won't fit the vibe anymore. Keep it abstract. Don't make your name too descriptive. For example, Michael Jordan. He named his clothing and shoe line Jordan. He didn't name it Jordan Basketball or something in that regard. That would be too descriptive. If people weren't into basketball, they would never buy Jordan basketball shoes. But because they're called Jordans, just regular people can also just buy them. Also now, most of the people that buy Jordans are not into basketball. So maybe it started as a basketball brand, but now it pivoted into just mainstream streetwear. So it's really important to just keep it abstract, keep it open, because if you limit yourself to just one thing or like one clothing brand or one sector, maybe in the long term you want to expand from that. Like for example, Apple. Apple didn't call themselves Apple Computers. They actually wanted to in the beginning, but now they make more than just computers. They make the iPhones, the watches, the Vision Pro, all these things. So it's really important to keep your name simple and abstract. Don't be too descriptive. Alright, be very careful with existing names. I recommend that you don't use a name that exists already and you make something up for yourself. Why? Because if you make a name up for yourself, like Buchan for example, then you can give it a meaning. On the contrary, if you use a name that exists already, people already have like a preconceived notion of what it means. If you call a brand water or something, people are gonna expect it to have like flowy lines and all these things. So it's really important to think about it. I don't say don't use words because it can work in some instances, but I just say be cautious about it. In some instances it can really work. For example, Tesla. Of course, Tesla motors are the electric vehicles by Elon Musk. We all know that, but where does the name Tesla come from? Nikola Tesla was a legendary inventor and he made significant contributions to make electricity more reliable and better for the public to understand. So his name, Tesla, was already linked to electricity. So the electric cars just took that name that already existed and took it for themselves. So this really works because they both already had electricity in common, so they just use the same name. But just before you choose a name, really think about it, like, does this name fit with the clothing brand? If it doesn't, really think twice. Because if it doesn't fit, it really mess up the entire brand and make sure you have long-term problems with the name. And changing a name afterwards is really hard, so make sure to really think about it, note it down, put it in your Apple Notes somewhere. If possible, make your brand name personal. I'm of course the perfect example for this because my brand name is literally my last name, Buchan. But there are also a ton of other brands doing the same thing. For example, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Tommy Hilfiger, all these brands, they're just names. So they're very personal to the founder of the clothing brand. Choosing a brand name that's personal is good for two reasons. Firstly, it's really nice for you because you have something personal invested in the brand. And secondly, it's really good because it's original. It's a word that probably doesn't exist yet. And because it's you already have like some special names. You're probably the only person with this last and first name. Maybe you have a middle name or something. So it makes sure your name is like something special, a word that doesn't exist. It's also really easy to give a meaning because you can just say, it's my last name. You don't have to like make some philosophical statements and stuff. It can be just, it's my last name. Something I see a lot of people do is ask ChatGPT for brand names, which is really not a good idea. You want an original brand name, something that stands out, all these other stuff I mentioned in this video. And ChatGPT is just the opposite of that. He's gonna come up with the most generic ass brand names ever. So guys, just do me a favor and do yourself a favor. Don't use ChatGPT for brand names. You can use it for inspiration, but don't just take something he says. So guys, don't use ChatGPT. Just get a little bit creative. Just note down what you guys would like as a brand name. Just make some simple notes like this, something not too crazy, and then you can expand from it. You can make something special out of it. You can put them in ChatGPT and ask him, or even better, you can do this actionable step and you can put them in our chat, in our progression chat, and people can give feedback to you what they think is the best name, what they think lacks in the name. Maybe if they think it could be better, then you guys have to like really stimulate each other to have nice, good brand names. Alright, so that could be really a nice thing to do. So guys, do it now. Put it on pause real quick and do it now. Put your brand names that you think about in the chat. If you think you found a good brand name, there's still one crucial step you need to do. That step is just Google it. Just Google it and see what's out there. Probably your name will already be taken by someone else, by, I don't know, a drinks company or some random cafe somewhere. But if there isn't like one big clothing brand with your brand name, then there's no big deal. You found a good brand name, well done. Let's go. But if you find another brand already existing with your clothing brand name, then you should probably search further. And also check out Instagram, TikTok, every platform. Check what's out there in that name. And if you have the luck that your brand name isn't claimed yet on Instagram, then you can also just claim that immediately. Guys, really well done. I hope this video was inspiring and I hope you found your clothing brand name or you've gotten more close to it. Put all your suggestions and all the clothing brand names in the chat and we'll give feedback to each other. If you still have some questions, you can ask me in the Q&A call, no worries. And let's get into the next video, making a logo.